Welcome everybody to our annual budget breakfast here at Portal Golf and Country Club, and it's great to see so many of you here today. It's actually a record attendance. We've got 161 people booked in today, which is absolutely fabulous, beat last year's record again. But many of you will actually know Kevin Dickens, who's actually sitting at the back, right over there, Kevin, who started all this off many, many years ago with a few sandwiches in his office at lunchtime to a few professional people. And look at us all now, isn't it fabulous? Just a few housekeeping things before we do start though. First of all, we're going to have questions at the end, so please, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them then. And can you also all check your mobile phones are all set to silent as well, please, just to ensure that. For those that don't know me, I'm Andrew Hague, one of the partners at Howard Worth, looking after clients from the Nantwich office. And just a few things about the budget. I think really, my own views on it, it's actually contained a lack of substance, but made much of the government's achievements over the last 5 years. And 70 years ago, Churchill told us, we may allow a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toil and efforts that lie ahead. So, with the election weeks away, it must be noted we are not out of the woods yet. And should Osborne be giving more away, or would that be hypocritical given his austerity measures? But what about the headlines for me? And you can see one of the many things that caught my eye was actually the abolition of the tax return. And how will we cope with that? But personally, I think this is a bit of a lot of hot water with the intention to pre-populate the tax info, but I think we shall still need to check it. And it will actually, I think really, with the history of government IT projects, will this actually happen on time as well? I mean, we've seen in the news this week about farmers' issues with their subsidy returns. Disappointment for me was actually the lack of clarity on the annual investment allowance. This drops to £25,000 at the end of the year, and George Osborne actually told us that it would be increased in the autumn statement. He'd review it in the autumn statement. But really, is that helpful for us all when we're sitting advising clients on how to plan their business? But was it a good budget? It was certainly a sharp suit and a crisp... Dawn, why have you put that slide up? I know you fancy him, but that's the correct slide. Dawn, I'll have to see you later about that. Anyway, this year we've actually decided to do our own party political survey. So you've received our survey, and thank you very much to everybody that has replied. This is my big Peter Snow moment, so I've been waiting for this one. And we've collated the results. We've got our panel of experts and our statisticians to review them all. And so these are what we've found. So the first question we asked you all was, to tackle the deficit, which of the following would be most appealing? We've got leave the higher rate threshold at £50,000, introduce a 35% rate on income between 42 and 55,000, and also introduce the 10% rate for low earners. And what were the results? You can see there, pretty close, but overall, the high rate threshold increased to £50,000. Well, that's got the Conservatives' policy written on it. Second question, what are your views on taxing the wealthy, and which option do you think will work? Now, you may think that the demographics in the room might slightly have skewed this one, because we've got, by a clear margin, that the 45% rate for incomes greater than 150,000 as the response. So again, that's a Conservative policy, not surprisingly. Third question, we asked about employment. In terms of helping to get Britain to full employment, what options would you choose? So, increased salary for the lowest paid, guaranteed jobs for the unemployed, or actually invest in 3 million apprenticeships. Now, clearly the room is focused on training for skills for their businesses on this one. Again, it's a Conservative policy. Question 4, we asked, what do you think would assist businesses the most? So a few options here. We've got reintroduction of the corporation tax band. Mike actually is going to be speaking about that later, and it's a policy that we remember probably not so fondly from back in 2002. Introduce a turnover tax is another option. Increased relief for capital expenditure. Increase of corporation tax to 21%. And also a reduction in the corporation tax from 20%. So, it's surprising here nobody wanted an increase in the corporation tax rate, isn't it, really? But very close here between the Green Party and the Conservative Party. So, if we look at all of these responses and crunch the numbers, how would the Houses of Parliament actually look? And remember, this is only a crude survey from the sample in the room here, and the questions have been very tailored towards economic policy. So Labour would actually get 106 seats. The Green Party would get 81 seats. With UKIP with 60, Lib Dems with 55, and the Conservatives with a runaway 348 seats. So, interesting there. Whether that is actually the result that comes out in a few weeks, well, I doubt it. So, moving on, it gives me pleasure today to introduce our speakers. We've got our panel here, who you've seen before. First of all, we've got David Evans, who today is going to tell you about, in more detail, some of the tax changes that came out in the budget. Secondly, then, we've got David Glaister, who's going to be talking to you about the economy and pension changes as well. And finally, then, we've got Mike Donnan, who's going to give his thoughts on the economy moving forward and the deficit as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dave.